Morning. So this morning the message is going to be a little different. I'm going to do a little bit of talking, but I found some resources this week that I thought did this much more eloquently and passionately than I would be able to. And sometimes you find those resources and you think they're just too good to pass up. So we're going to use them this morning. So everybody, if you have a pencil and paper around, something to write with, if you don't, you can just think. But if you do, get it out. We got extra pencils up here or not? No? All right. So what I want you to do is think about a time that you made a mistake, a memorable mistake. Maybe even a mistake that you thought there was no way you could come back from. Now, you don't have to show this to anybody. This is just for you, so if you write it. But go ahead and take a minute to write down that memorable mistake that you made. All right. Well, our story today is about Peter, who also made a very memorable mistake. One that was written down by all four gospel writers and that we still remember today, 2,000 years later. So I want to listen to him tell us about that mistake.
They say a rooster crowing is God's wake-up call. Yeah, at least that's the way it was for me. Everything, that whole night was a blur, all right? I didn't comprehend, none of us could comprehend everything that was going on, all right? We were all in the upper room, Jesus was washing our feet, then we were in the garden, Jesus goes off to pray by himself. I fell asleep, I'm not proud of it, had a big meal. Bread makes me sleepy. Next thing we know, me, James, and John, Jesus is in our face, and he's trying to wake us up, and he said, the flesh is weak, the spirit is willing, and then before we know it, Judas is kissing Jesus on the cheek. I try to go help him. I cut off this guy's ear. For the record, I wasn't aiming for his ear. He's a Christian, absolutely. And then they arrest Jesus, and they take him off, and we ran. And it wasn't but 2 hours earlier that we were in the upper room. I was looking at him. I was looking him right in the eye saying, if everyone disowns you, Jesus, I won't. I'm with you. I love you. And I think that's why it made me stop, turn around, go back. And I caught a glimpse of Jesus as they were taking him to the high priest's house. He stood at the gate, and some girl comes up to me, starts pointing at me, starts going, you're with him. You're with this man that claims to be the Son of God. You're one of his disciples. I felt like every eye was on me. So I just brushed her off. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. You got the wrong guy. I get my way into the courtyard, and it's cold. I try to warm up by the fire. And then there's this guy that recognizes me, and he is from the ear incident, and starts going, get him, he's with them, just arrest him, get him. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, all right? I wasn't with them. It was easier the second time to deny him. It was sometime right before morning, and this wise guy, he comes up to me, who are you kidding, all right? Who are you fooling? You're with him. I can tell by your accent. I'm like, this is just the way I talk, all right? And the whole night, they kept pushing him around. They kept beating him. They kept spitting on him, throwing insults at him. And I couldn't take it anymore. I had enough. I was tired of people accusing me, looking at me. And I said a few things that I'm not proud of, but I was like, leave him alone. You don't know what you're doing, all right? Just leave him alone. I wasn't with him. And that's when I heard the most blood-curdling sound I ever heard in my whole life. I heard that rooster crow. And at that moment, Jesus, he turns around and he looks at me. He looks at me. And his gaze, you can't escape his gaze. I mean, when his eyes are on you, you cannot escape it. And they arrested him and they took him off. I would die with you, Jesus, as everyone did. If everybody disowned you, I would die with you. What a joke. I mean, what would you do? At that moment, at that time, I ran so fast, I ran so long. And you know what they did? They killed him. He's dead.
You know, we often remember Peter for this mistake as well as others. Peter was one of Jesus' close friends and disciples, but Peter was also pretty impetuous and brash. He is the one who Jesus called Satan when Peter suggested there might be an easier way to accomplish God's will than dying. Peter's the one that Jesus reprimanded when Peter drew a sword in the garden and cut off the ear of Malchus, the slave of the high priest. Peter's the one who promised Jesus he would lay down his life for him, and then, in his fear, denied him 3 times. But Peter was so much more. Peter is also the one who confessed Jesus to be the Holy One of God. Peter is the one who wanted Jesus to wash all of him, from his head to his feet, not just his feet. Peter is one of only 2 of Jesus' disciples who actually followed him when he was arrested. The rest ran away. Peter is the one who raced to the tomb on Easter morning to see if Jesus was truly alive. Peter is the one who jumped into the sea and swam to shore in his eagerness to reach the risen Jesus. Even for the most faithful disciple, it's not always easy to follow Jesus. When I was little, my mom used to recite this nursery rhyme to me. You probably heard it. There was a little girl, and she had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. I had curly hair, so you can figure out why she used that one. But I was always good, of course. No, not bad. The truth is that all of us are a mixture of faithfulness and betrayal. Confessing Jesus as Lord with our mouth, but not always following through with the way that we live our lives. We deny Jesus when we chop off someone else's ear, either physically or verbally. Barbara Essex reminds us that we deny Jesus in the way we shop, the way we vote, the way we turn a deaf ear and blind eye to what is happening in our communities, in our nation, and in our world. But our failure is not the end of our story. And Peter's denial is not the end of his story. Watch.
Grace is God's unmerited favor for us, his crazy love. And the truth is, many times we struggle understanding it. If you find yourself struggling to understand God's grace, don't beat yourself up. Even the disciples struggled with understanding grace.
Jesus, is that you? You're alive. I can't believe you're alive. Okay, I was in the boat and I wasn't catching any fish, okay? But I heard this voice and the voice said, cast your net to the other side. And so I'm thinking, I'm a fisherman, I know what I'm doing, but I'm not catching any fish, you know? And so I throw that net over there, and then a gaggle of fish pop into that net, and I'm going, this is a total miracle. Who could have done that? I need to know who told me to throw the net to the other side. And boom, I look up, and I mean, there is you. You're looking at me on the seashore going, it is I, the Lord. It's real alive. I can't believe you're alive. This is awesome.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on.
Peter,
Yeah.
Do you
you love me?
Yes, I love you. I love you. You're alive. This is so great.
Good, then feed my sheep.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, man. It's here.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you love me?
I love you. Yes. And I'm so sorry about that rooster clucking. I had no idea what that meant, but I do now. I'm better for it, all right? Okay? But I'm serious. Come on, get out of the boat. It's him.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you love me?
Jesus, mere words cannot describe the passion that I have for you. I love you. You know everything. I love you.
Good. Good. Then feed my sheep.
I didn't even know you had livestock. That is so I love about you.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you remember the morning the ladies went to the tomb?
Yeah. We're all in the upper room trying to figure out what to do next, because we thought you were dead. You were dead, We're trying to figure all that out, And Mary comes running up, and Mary's like saying, beehive, beehive, beehive. And I'm thinking, I'm allergic to bees. Like, keep them out, you know what I'm saying? But as she kept getting closer, I heard her correctly. She was saying, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. She said, she was at the tomb, and the tomb was empty, and she said that there was an angel there, and the angel said, go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay, he's risen. And so, me and John, we hightailed it down there, and if John says he beat me, he's totally lying, all right? When we get down there, and I'm looking at that tomb, and it is empty. There's nothing in there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And John is right there. John is so good with words. He should write a book. He is so good at words. Peter, this is everything Jesus said he was going to do, and you did it, and it's done. Let's go. This is so great.
Wait, the angel said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay. He is risen. You've risen. Let's go.
He said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter. To the disciples and Peter. You said my name. Why did you say my name?
Peter, that's grace.
No, I don't deserve that, because that night people kept coming up to me asking me if I belonged to you, if I was with you, and I kept denying you left and right, all right? No, it'll take me my whole life to make up for what I did. It was unforgivable for what I did.
No. What I did on the cross was meant to take what is unforgivable and make it forgivable. That's my grace. It's not about you. It's always about me. That's grace, Peter.
Grace is what Peter received, and grace is what we receive as well. Peter's denial didn't end his discipleship. Peter is the rock on which the church is built. Peter's story is all about grace. The gospel story is all about grace. Grace is about undeserved forgiveness. It's about receiving and giving undeserved forgiveness. It's about forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, even when both can seem difficult or even downright impossible. Reverend Dr. Daniel Meter reminds us that when we fail, God is still deeply invested in us. He writes, God will be recognized even in your confession of your bad behavior. God will be recognized not as the God who is known by loving the good and successful, but the God who is known by loving the weak and the fallen. Not as the God who loves the righteous, but as the God who loves the sinner. Following Jesus is something we cannot perfect, but we have to practice daily. Sometimes we will excel, and sometimes we will fail miserably. Either way, God calls us to wake up each and every morning and try again. Victoria Atkinson writes, in the end, good wins, love wins, life wins. Peter fails, yes, in this passage, but thanks be to God that God does not judge us on one or even three particular failures. We all fall short, but God's grace allows us to get back up, dust ourselves off, and start all over again. Being the first Sunday of the month,